My daughter-in-law Brittany actually handed me a maid's uniform for her gender reveal party. She told me to stay invisible. She didn't know that by the time the pink smoke cleared, she'd be homeless. Smash that subscribe button if you love seeing entitled brats get exactly what they deserve. My name is Eleanor. I am 68 years old. And for the last 3 years, I have been living in a nightmare disguised as a suburban dream. It all started when my son, Jason, brought Brittany home. She was 24, beautiful in that plastic Instagram filter sort of way, and had a smile that didn't quite reach her cold, calculating eyes. I welcomed her with open arms. I was lonely since my husband passed, and I thought having family in the house would be a blessing. I was a fool. This past Saturday was the breaking point. I was sitting at my kitchen island, in the house my late husband and I bought 40 years ago, drinking my morning tea. Brittany stormed in, her phone glued to her ear, talking a mile a minute about aesthetics and color palettes. She hung up and looked at me with that look of disdain she usually reserved for expired milk. Eleanor, we need to talk about next weekend, she said, not asking, but commanding. She placed a heavy binder on the counter. It was labeled Baby J's Gender Reveal Extravaganza. I took a sip of tea. Good morning to you too, Brittany. What about next weekend? The party, obviously. She rolled her eyes, tapping her manicured nails on the granite. I invited 50 people. My entire sorority is coming, plus Jason's coworkers and my family from out of state. It's going to be huge. We need the backyard prepped, the pool heated, and the patio furniture replaced. That old set you have is embarrassing. It looks like something from a thrift store. That old set was vintage wrought iron, worth more than her car, but I bit my tongue. 50 people. Brittany, this isn't a banquet hall. And who is paying for new furniture? Jason said you would handle it. She replied breezily, opening the fridge and grimacing at my leftovers. You have that pension and the insurance money. You don't spend it on anything anyway. Plus, we need you to cook. Caterers are such a ripoff. And Jason says your brisket is decent. We need brisket sliders, mac and cheese bites, and I want a 3-tier cake. Make sure it's gluten-free for my sister. I stared at her. She was demanding thousands of dollars in renovations and days of labor for a party I wasn't even asked about. I looked at Jason, who had just shuffled into the kitchen, staring at his feet. He looked tired, beaten down, but mostly he looked spineless. Jason. I asked, do you agree with this? He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Mom, it's a big day for Britt. She's stressed. Just help us out, okay? We want everything to be perfect for the baby. Perfect. That word again. Everything had to be perfect for them, while I was expected to be the silent financier and the janitor. But then came the kicker. The thing that made my blood run cold and finally killed the last ounce of sympathy I had for them. Brittany pulled a plastic bag out of her oversized tote bag and tossed it onto the counter. It slid across the granite and stopped right in front of my teacup. And wear this, she said. I opened the bag. Inside was a black dress with a white apron, a maid's uniform, a cheap polyester costume like you'd see in a bad movie. Excuse me. My voice dropped to a whisper. Well, you're going to be serving the food and cleaning up as we go, Brittany explained, as if she were talking to a slow child. And honestly, Eleanor, you don't exactly fit the vibe of the party. My friends are influencers. They're stylish. We can't have you walking around in your grandma clothes. It ruins the aesthetic. If you dress like the hell, people won't feel awkward asking you to refill their drinks. It's just easier for everyone. I looked at Jason. He refused to meet my eyes. He was letting his wife dress his mother, the woman who paid for his college, who paid off his credit card debt twice like a servant in her own home. You want me to pretend to be a maid? I asked, my voice shaking, not with sadness, but with a rage so hot it felt like it could melt the floor. Don't be dramatic. Mom, Jason finally mumbled, grabbing a protein shake. It's just a theme. It's not a big deal. Brittany smirked. Exactly. Just stay in the background. Keep the trays full. And for God's sake, don't try to make conversation with my friends. They don't want to hear your old stories. Oh, and one more thing. We need the master bedroom for the coat check and gift storage. You'll have to sleep in the den downstairs for a few days. Asterisk, my bedroom. The room I shared with my husband for 4 decades. Asterisk, I stood up slowly. The air in the kitchen felt electric. I looked at the cheap maid outfit, then at my son's pathetic posture, and finally at Brittany's smug, entitled face. She thought she had one. She thought I was just a senile old ATM machine she could push into the corner. Asterisk, okay? I said softly. Asterisk, Brittany clapped her hands. Great. I knew you'd be reasonable. Get started on cleaning the pool deck today. It's filthy. Asterisk, she turned around and strutted out of the kitchen, already dialing her phone to brag to her friends. Jason gave me a quick, guilty glance before following her like a puppy. Asterisk, I stood there in the silence of my kitchen. I touched the cold granite. I looked out the window at the backyard they wanted to destroy. They thought, okay, meant I surrendered. They didn't know that okay was the sound of the safety coming off a loaded gun. I wasn't going to clean the pool deck. I had a phone call to make, and it wasn't to a caterer. It was to my lawyer. Because if they wanted a show, I was going to give them one they would never forget. After they left the kitchen, I didn't scream. I didn't throw the cheap polyester maid outfit into the trash where it belonged. Instead, I folded it neatly and placed it on the counter. If Brittany wanted a maid, she was going to get a performance worthy of an Oscar. But first, I had business to handle. Asterisk, I waited until I heard Brittany's car peel out of the driveway, probably heading to the mall to spend money she didn't have on. Jason retreated to his man cave in the garage to play video games. I slipped out the back door, got into my Buick, and drove straight to a little diner 3 towns over. I wasn't meeting a friend for coffee. I was meeting Arthur, my estate attorney for the past 20 years. Asterisk, when I slid into the booth opposite him, he looked concerned. I must have looked like a woman on the edge. I explained everything. The maid outfit. The demands. The way they had slowly, methodically stripped me of my dignity in my own home. Arthur, bless his heart, turned red with anger. He started talking about elder abuse statutes and restraining orders, but I raised a hand to stop him. Asterisk, I don't want a restraining order. Arthur, I told him, sipping my black coffee. I want to burn their world down. Legally speaking, of course. Asterisk, we spent the next 2 hours drafting documents. I signed papers that would initiate the sale of my house to a property developer who had been pestering me for months. The developer wanted to tear it down and build condos. I had always said no because I wanted to leave the house to Jason. Now, I signed the deed transfer with a steady hand. The closing date was set for the Monday after the party. But the eviction notice, that was the cherry on top. Arthur promised to have a process server deliver it at the most opportune moment. Asterisk, I drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. When I walked in, the chaos had already begun. Brittany had hired a crew to rip up my rose garden, my late husband's. Pride and joy because the colors clashed with her gender reveal theme. I watched from the window as they tore out the bushes, feeling a pang of sorrow. But I shoved it down. Let them destroy it. It wouldn't be theirs for long. Asterisk, the week leading up to the party was a masterclass in humiliation. Brittany was in full bridezilla mode, even though she was already married. She treated me like an invisible TaskRabbit. Asterisk, Eleanor, did you scrub the baseboards in the hallway? I saw dust. She snapped at me on Wednesday while watching TikToks on the sofa. Asterisk, I'm on it, Brittany, I said, my voice sickly sweet. I got down on my hands and knees and scrubbed. Jason walked by, stepped over my legs, and didn't say a word. He was too busy texting. That silence from my son hurt more than Brittany's insults. He saw his mother on her knees cleaning his mess, and he just kept walking. Asterisk, on Thursday, Brittany's best friend Kayla came over. She was a clone of Brittany, just with louder vocal fry. I was in the kitchen prepping the brisket. marinating the meat exactly how Jason used to love it when he was a boy. Asterisk, oh my God, is that the help? Kayla whispered loudly, giggling as she pointed at me. Asterisk, Brittany laughed, pouring herself a glass of my expensive wine. Basically, she's totally washing up on the day. It's going to be hilarious. I told her to wear the uniform and everything. Asterisk, you are a genius, Britt, Kayla squealed. That is such a vibe. It creates a total hierarchy aesthetic. It's very Downton Abbey, but like suburban tragedy. Asterisk, they clinked glasses. I gripped the butcher knife I was using to trim the fat off the brisket a little tighter. Suburban tragedy. Oh, honey, you have no idea. Asterisk, by Friday night, the house was unrecognizable. My cozy living room was filled with white and beige balloons. My furniture had been moved to the garage and replaced with rented, uncomfortable-looking chic chairs. The maid uniform was hanging on the outside of the door to the den, the small, drafty room in the basement where I was now sleeping because my bedroom was full of their coats and supplies. Asterisk, I lay on the lumpy pull-out couch in the basement, listening to their footsteps overhead. They were laughing, probably drinking champagne, celebrating their future. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought they were inheriting $1 million home and a live-in servant. Asterisk, I checked my phone. Had a text from Arthur. The package is with the courier. Noon tomorrow. Good luck, Eleanor. Asterisk, I smiled in the darkness. They wanted a show. They wanted me to be the help. Fine. I would play the part. I would serve them there. Food, I would clean their spills, and I would wear that ridiculous dress. I would let them pile the disrespect higher and higher until the tower was so tall it would crush them when it fell. Asterisk, the morning of the party arrived with a gray, overcast sky. I put on the black dress. It was tight and itchy. I tied the white apron around my waist. I looked at myself in the small basement mirror. I didn't look like a maid. I looked like a woman who had nothing left to lose. Asterisk, I walked up the stairs to the kitchen. Brittany was already there, screaming at a balloon artist. She turned, saw me, and smirked. Asterisk, finally, she said, you actually look decent. Make sure you stay out of the photos unless I tell you otherwise. Now, get the trays ready. The guests are arriving in 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am, I said. The doorbell rang. The first guest. The show was starting, and I was ready for my final act. The transformation of my home from a sanctuary to a circus was instantaneous. By 11 a.m., the house was packed with Brittany's squad. I had never seen so much spray tan and teeth whitener in one room. The air smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. I stood by the sliding glass door, holding a heavy silver tray of the brisket sliders I had spent 6 hours cooking, while a DJ set up in the corner of my living room blasting bass-heavy pop music that rattled the family photos they hadn't bothered to take down. Asterisk, I became invisible, just as Brittany had ordered. Or rather, I became an object, a prop. Asterisk, excuse me, a young man with bleached hair said, not even looking at my face as he grabbed a slider. He chewed with his mouth open, recording himself on his phone. Yo, this lighting is kinda mid-Brit. We need to move the balloon arch to the patio. Asterisk, I know, right? Brittany shrieked, rushing over. She looked at me, her eyes narrowing. Eleanor, move. You're ruining the shot. Go serve the drinks by the pool. And try to look less miserable. You're killing the vibe. Asterisk, I didn't say a word. I just nodded, turned, and walked toward the pool area. My knees were aching. The cheap shoes that came with the costume offered zero support. And I had been on my feet since 5 a.m. As I navigated through the crowd, I saw my son. Jason was by the cooler, laughing with 2 of his college buddies holding a beer. He looked happy, comfortable. Asterisk, I walked right past him. He saw me, I know he saw me. He saw his mother dressed like a caricature, carrying a tray heavy with ice and drinks. For a split second, his smile faltered. He looked like he might say something, maybe offer to take the tray. But then one of his friends punched him on the shoulder and made a joke. And Jason turned back to them, laughing louder than before. He chose to ignore me. That hurt more than Brittany's insults. He was complicit in my humiliation. Asterisk by 11:45 a.m. The temperature was rising, and so was Brittany's ego. She gathered everyone by the pool for a toast before the big reveal. She stood on a chair, tapping a spoon against her champagne flute. Asterisk, hey everyone, listen up. She squealed. The music lowered. 50 faces turned toward her, phones raised to capture the moment. I just want to thank you all for coming to our home. Jason and I have worked so hard to make this place our dream sanctuary. We have so many big plans for renovations next month. We're going to knock down this kitchen wall, put in a hot tub, and really make it ours. Asterisk ours. The audacity took my breath away. She was publicly claiming ownership of the house I was still paying utilities on. The house whose deed was currently sitting in a lawyer's safe, waiting to be transferred. Asterisk N, she continued, glancing down at me with a smirk. I want to thank the help for making the food, even if the brisket is a little dry. Asterisk, a ripple of laughter went through the crowd. I stood there, stone-faced, holding a tray of empty glasses. My face burned, but I kept my chin up. Laugh while you can, little girl, I thought. Enjoy the spotlight. Asterisk, she hopped down from the chair, basking in the applause. Okay, guys. The big reveal is in 20 minutes. But first, let's get some content for the gram. Asterisk, she grabbed Kayla, and they started posing in front of the flower wall. I moved to clear a table near them. As I reached for a dirty plate, Brittany spun around, her arm flailing, and knocked a full glass of red sangria right out of my hand. The glass shattered on the patio stones, splashing dark red liquid all over her pristine white heels. Asterisk, the music stopped. The chatter died. Asterisk, oh my God. Brittany screamed, looking at her shoes as if she'd been shot. Look what you did. You clumsy old hag. These are Jimmy Choo's. Asterisk I. You hit my arm, I said calmly. Asterisk, don't lie. She shrieked, her face twisting into something ugly. You did that on purpose. You're jealous. You've been trying to sabotage this day since I started planning it. Jason, get over here. Asterisk, Jason jogged over, looking panicked. Babe, what happened? Asterisk, your mother threw a drink on me. She lied, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. She ruined my shoes. I can't do the reveal like this. Get her out of here. I don't want to see her face. Asterisk, Jason turned to me, his face red with embarrassment. Mom, seriously? Can't you just go to the basement? You're causing a scene. Asterisk, I looked at him. Really looked at him. I didn't drop it, Jason. She hit me. Asterisk, just go, Mom. He hissed through gritted teeth. Please, before you ruin everything. Asterisk, I took a deep breath. I smoothed the front of my ridiculous white apron. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just checked my watch. It was 11:59 a.m. I'll go, I said softly, but I think someone is at the front door for you. Asterisk, right on cue, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a normal ring. It was a long, insistent press. Asterisk, who is that? Brittany snapped, wiping her shoe with a napkin. If it's another guest, they are incredibly late. Asterisk, I'll get it, Jason said, eager to escape the tension. He jogged through the house to the front door. Asterisk, I didn't move toward the basement. I stayed right where I was on the patio. I wanted a front row seat. The guests parted as Jason walked back out a moment later, looking confused. He was followed by a tall, broad-shouldered man in a cheap suit holding a thick manila envelope. Asterisk Brittany. The man called out, his voice booming across the silent pool deck. Brittany and Jason Miller. Asterisk Brittany stepped forward, looking annoyed but curious. That's us. Who are you? Are you the balloon guy? You're late. Asterisk, the man didn't smile. He walked right up to the happy couple, right in the center of their aesthetic party, surrounded by 50 iPhones recording every second. Asterisk, I'm not the balloon guy, he said flatly. I'm a process server. He shoved the envelope into Jason's chest. You've been served, the man said, and you have 24 hours to vacate the premises. The owner has sold the property. Asterisk, the silence that followed was heavier than the humid air. Brittany froze, her mouth open. Jason looked at the envelope, then at the man, and finally, slowly, his eyes found mine across the pool deck. Asterisk, I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd worn all day. The silence that followed the process server's announcement was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. For a solid 10 seconds. The only sound was the hum of the pool filter and the distant bass of the music that the DJ had awkwardly cut off. 50 phones were still raised, but instead of capturing a gender reveal, they were live streaming a lifestyle collapse. Asterisk, Brittany was the first to break the paralysis. She let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. Asterisk, okay, very funny, she said, looking around wildly at her friends. Who hired him? Is this part of the reveal? Is the baby gender inside the envelope? That is so creative, you guys. Asterisk, she reached for the envelope in Jason's hand, her manicured claws snatching at the paper. Let me see. Is it a boy or a girl? Asterisk, Jason didn't let go. He was gripping the paper so hard his knuckles were white. He was reading the cover letter, his eyes darting back and forth, his face draining of all color until he looked like a sheet of paper. Asterisk, it's not a reveal. Britt? Jason whispered, his voice cracking. It's real. It's an eviction notice. A notice of sale. Asterisk, what are you talking about? Brittany snapped, her smile dropping instantly. She snatched the papers from him and scanned them. Her eyes widened. Sold. Henderson Development. Who the hell is Henderson Development? This is our house. You can't sell a house without the owner's permission. Asterisk, the process server, who was already walking back toward the gate, paused and turned around. The owner gave permission, ma'am. The deed transfer was initiated this morning. You have 24 hours to vacate before the locks are changed. Have a nice day. He left. The gate clicking shut behind him. Brittany spun around, her eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. I was still standing by the drinks, wearing that ridiculous black dress and white apron. But I wasn't holding a tray anymore. I had set it down on a table and was slowly untying the apron strings. Asterisk you, she hissed, pointing a trembling finger at me. What did you do? Asterisk, I didn't shout. I didn't raise my voice. I walked toward the center of the patio, my heels clicking on the stone. The guests parted for me like the Red Sea. I saw Kayla, Brittany's best friend, holding her phone up, recording every second. The comments section on her live stream was probably exploding. Asterisk. I did what any sensible homeowner would do when she's tired of the upkeep. I said, my voice calm and carrying clearly across the yard. I sold the property. I got a very good cash offer. The developers are going to scrape the lot. They're building condos. Asterisk, you sold our house. Brittany shrieked, her voice reaching a frequency that made dogs bark in the distance. You sold it right before the reveal. We have renovations starting Monday. We have a contractor coming to knock down the kitchen wall. Asterisk, there will be no renovations, I said, finally dropping the white apron onto the ground and stepping over it. And correction, Brittany, I didn't sell your house. I sold my house. The house my husband and I bought 40 years ago. The house you have been treating like a hotel, and the house where you have treated me like a servant. Asterisk, Jason finally found his voice. He stepped toward me looking like a kicked puppy. Mom, please, stop. Everyone is watching. We can talk about this inside. Just tell them it's a mistake. Asterisk, it's no mistake, Jason, I told him, looking him dead in the eye. And I want everyone to watch. You wanted a spectacle, didn't you? You wanted everything to be perfect for the gram. Well, here's your content. The reality is, you don't own this house. You don't pay the mortgage. You don't pay the taxes. You don't even pay for the groceries. You are a 30-year-old man living off his mother's pension while his wife spends thousands on parties she can't afford. Asterisk, the crowd gasped. I heard a few snickers. I saw people whispering behind their hands. The illusion of Brittany's perfect wealthy life was shattering in real time. Asterisk, you selfish witch. Brittany lunged at me, but Jason held her back. We have a baby coming. You're making your grandchild homeless. How could you be so evil? Asterisk, homeless. I raised an eyebrow. I thought you were successful. I thought you had a booming career as an influencer. Surely you have savings. Or perhaps you can stay at that luxury apartment you're always talking about. Oh wait, that was a lie too, wasn't it? Asterisk, Brittany's face turned a violent shade of red. She looked around at her friends, desperate for support, but they were backing away. This wasn't the aesthetic they signed up for. This was messy. This was Laurent drama, and they didn't want the splatter on their feeds. Asterisk, get out. Brittany screamed, stomping her foot like a toddler. Get out of my house. I want her gone, Jason. Throw her out. Asterisk, I don't have to go anywhere for another 24 hours, I said coldly. But you all do. The party is over. The new owners are sending a crew to secure the perimeter tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Anything left inside will be considered trash and hauled to the dump. I suggest you start packing. Asterisk, I looked at the crowd of stunned guests. The bar is closed. Please leave. Asterisk, it was chaotic. People started shuffling toward the exit, murmuring apologies, or just sprinting to their cars to avoid the awkwardness. The DJ started packing up his gear in record time. Kayla, the best friend, didn't even say goodbye to Brittany. She just slipped out the side gate. Still typing on her phone, asterisk Brittany stood in the middle of the ruined party, surrounded by deflating balloons and half-a-ton food. She looked at Jason, then at me, her eyes filled with pure, unadulterated hatred. Asterisk, you'll pay for this, she spat. You will never see this baby. You are dead to us. Asterisk Brittany, I said, checking my nails. Considering you treated me like a maid for the last 6 months, I think I can live with that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a hotel room booked. The bed is king-sized, and unlike the den you put me in, it doesn't smell like mold. Enjoy your packing. Asterisk, I turned my back on them and walked toward the house to grab my suitcase, which I had packed and hidden in the trunk of my car hours ago. I didn't look back, but I could hear Brittany sobbing not sad tears, but angry, frustrated screams of a spoiled brat who had finally been told no. It was the sweetest sound I had heard in years. But the real twist, they didn't even know the half of it yet. The money from the house sale wasn't just sitting in a bank account. I had one more surprise for them, and it was going to hit them harder than the eviction notice. I woke up the next morning in a king-size bed at the Ritz-Carlton, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets that cost more than Brittany's entire wardrobe. For the first time in 3 years. I didn't wake up to the sound of someone demanding pancakes or complaining that I was breathing too loudly. I ordered room service eggs, Benedict, and a mimosa and scrolled through social media while I ate. The fallout was spectacular. Kayla, Brittany's bestie, had posted a 3-part story about the disaster party, essentially throwing Brittany under the bus to save her own clout. The comments were brutal. Karma, mother-in-law of the year. And the entitlement is real, were the nicer ones. Asterisk, I checked. Out at 7:30 a.m. The eviction deadline was 8 a.m. And I wasn't going to miss the grand finale. Asterisk, when I pulled up to the curb of my old house. This scene was chaotic. A massive dumpster was sitting in the driveway, which the new owners had graciously delivered early. Jason and Brittany were frantically running back and forth, shoving clothes, electronics, and random knickknacks into black garbage bags. The aesthetic was dead and buried. Brittany was wearing sweatpants, no makeup. And her hair was in a messy bun that wasn't cute. It was greasy. Asterisk, I parked my Buick and leaned against the hood, crossing my arms. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. Asterisk, Jason saw me first. He dropped a box of his gaming consoles and ran over to me, looking like a man who hadn't slept in a week. His eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled like stale beer and panic. Asterisk, Mom. Thank God you're here, he gasped, wiping sweat from his forehead. Look, we're packing. We're going. But we need to talk about the logistics. Brittany found a luxury rental in the city. It's pricey, but since the house sold for cash, we can cover the year's rent up front. We just need you to transfer the funds to our joint account this morning. Asterisk, I stared at him, genuinely impressed by the density of his skull. Transfer the funds. I repeated slowly. Asterisk. Brittany stomped over, dragging a suitcase that was bursting at the seams. She looked less angry than yesterday, replaced by a desperate, shark-like focus. She forced a smile that looked painful. Asterisk. Eleanor. Look, she started, her voice trembling with forced sweetness. Yesterday was intense. We were all emotional, but we're family. Jason is your only son. We know you sold the house for at least $800,000. That's a lot of money. We figured we'd split it. You keep half for your retirement home or whatever, and we take half to get set up for the baby. That's fair, right? Asterisk fair? I laughed, a dry, sharp sound. You want $400,000. After telling me I belong in a maid's uniform? Asterisk, it's for the baby. Brittany screeched, the mask slipping again. Don't you care about your grandson? We need stability. We can't live in a motel. Asterisk, then you should have gotten jobs that pay actual money instead of likes, I said. But let's clear up a misunderstanding. There is no money for you. Not half, not a tithe, not a penny. Asterisk. Jason turned pale. What, Mom? Don't be crazy. You can't spend all that money. You're old. You don't need it. It's my inheritance. Asterisk. It was your inheritance. I corrected him. But inheritance is what you get when I die. I'm very much alive. Jason and I decided that waiting until I'm dead to enjoy the fruits of my labor was a bad financial strategy. So I met with my financial advisor last week, right after I met with the lawyer. I took a folded piece of paper out of my purse and handed it to Jason. What is this? He asked, his hands shaking. Asterisk. That is the paperwork for the Eleanor's Golden Years Irrevocable Trust. I explained, savoring every syllable. Every cent from the sale of the house after paying off the closing costs has been deposited into that trust. It is strictly managed. It pays for my living expenses, my health care, and my travel. And the best part? It has a no-contest clause. If you try to sue me or challenge the trust, you are automatically disinherited from receiving anything that might be left over when I pass, which, judging by my plans, will be absolutely nothing. Asterisk. Jason looked like he was going to vomit. He read the paper, his lips moving silently. Brittany snatched it from him, scanning the legal jargon, her eyes widening in horror. Asterisk. Travel. She whispered. What do you mean, travel? Asterisk. I mean, I'm booked on a world cruise, Brittany, I said, checking my watch. It departs in 2 days. 3 months exploring Europe, Asia, and the South Pacific. First class. Balcony suite. I hear the food is exquisite, and I won't have to cook a single meal for anyone. Asterisk. You ... You selfish be asterisk TCH. Brittany screamed, crumpling the paper and throwing it at me. It bounced harmlessly off my chest. You're stealing our future. We have nothing. We have credit card debt. We have a baby coming. Asterisk. You have legs and a working brain. Brittany, I said, cold as ice. I suggest you use them. The new owners will be here in 15 minutes. I'd hurry up with those bags if I were you. The garbage truck comes at noon, and they won't distinguish between trash and your wardrobe. Asterisk. Mom, please, Jason begged, tears finally streaming down his face. He grabbed my arm. I'm your son. You can't leave us like this. We have nowhere to go. Asterisk. I looked at his hand on my arm, the same hand that had waved me away yesterday when I was being humiliated. I gently but firmly removed his grip. Asterisk. You're right, Jason. You are my son, I said softly. And that is my greatest failure. I raised you to be a man, but you chose to be a doormat for a narcissist. I'm not leaving you with nothing. I'm leaving you with a lesson. Figure it out. Asterisk. I got back into my car. I put the engine in gear. As I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Brittany was on her knees in the driveway, screaming at the sky, and Jason was sitting on the curb. head in his hands, surrounded by black plastic bags. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. But I had one last stop to make before the airport. One final loose end to tie up to ensure they couldn't claw their way back to me. The revenge wasn't just about money. It was about ensuring total, permanent silence. My final stop wasn't a lawyer's office or a bank. It was the Verizon store in the strip mall next to the airport. You see, in the chaos of the eviction and the gender reveal disaster, Jason and Brittany had forgotten one crucial detail about their lifestyle. I subsidized everything. Not just the house, but the digital leash that kept them connected to their superficial world. I walked into the store, dragging my Louis Vuitton carry-on behind me. A young man named Tyler, who looked like he'd rather be surfing, greeted me. Help you with something, ma'am? Yes. Tyler, I said, slapping my platinum status ID on the counter. I need to make some changes to the Miller family plan. Specifically, I need to sever the family part. I pulled up the account. Jason and Brittany were both on my plan. They had the newest iPhone Pro Max models leased, of course, under my credit with unlimited data, international roaming, and insurance. Their bill alone was nearly $400 a month. I want to cancel lines 2 and 3, I instructed, pointing to their numbers. And I want to report the devices associated with those lines as no longer in my possession. I'm not sure if you can brick them, but if you can't, I want the service terminated immediately, as in right now. Tyler typed on his iPad. Sure. That's gonna come with some early termination fees for the leases if we don't get the phones back. Charge it to the card on file, I said without hesitation. It's a small price to pay for silence. Okay. And for your line? Change the number, I said, unlisted, and set up a new PIN code. Something complex. As Tyler worked his magic, my phone buzzed one last time. It was a text from Jason. Mom, are you serious? The movers want $2,000 up front. We don't have it. Answer me. Then? Another from Brittany. You're a monster. I hope you die alone. I looked at the messages. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt pity. They were drowning, and for the first time in their lives, they realized I wasn't the life raft. I was the ocean, and I had simply decided to stop holding them up. Done, Tyler said. Service for those 2 lines is cut. Your new number is active. The screen on my phone flickered. The texts disappeared. The signal bars reset. I was a ghost. I walked out of the store and hailed a cab to the international terminal. 6 months later, I was sitting on a terrace in Santorini, watching the sun dip below the Aegean Sea. The sky was a bruised purple and gold, painting the white buildings in soft light. A waiter placed a glass of chilled Assyrtiko wine in front of me. My tablet pinged. It was an email from Arthur, my lawyer. He was the only person from my old life who had my new contact info. And we had a strict agreement. Updates only when absolutely necessary. Or when they were amusing subject. The dust settles, Eleanor. I thought you'd appreciate a brief update. The kids have officially moved. Brittany's parents apparently took them in for 2 weeks before kicking them out, something about Brittany refusing to get a job because she was high risk. She wasn't. Jason is currently working double shifts at an Amazon fulfillment center. It seems his degree in general studies didn't open many doors. Brittany is trying to sue the trust for grandparent support, which isn't a real thing. But I enjoyed billing the trust for the hour it took me to laugh at her lawyer. Oh, and the baby. It's a girl. They named her Khaleesi. I wish I was joking. They have no address for you. They have no phone number. To them, you have simply ceased to exist. Enjoy the Greek Isles. Don't drink too much wine. Arthur I chuckled, sipping the crisp wine. Amazon warehouse work. It was honest labor, something Jason had avoided his entire life. Maybe, just maybe, I had actually done him a favor. He was finally learning what $1 cost. I closed the cover of my tablet. I looked out at the ocean. Asterisk for years. I had convinced myself that love meant sacrifice. That being a good mother meant letting yourself be carved up, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but a stump for your children to stand on. But I had learned the hard way that you can't set yourself on fire just to keep others warm, especially when those others are standing there with marshmallows, complaining about the heat. Asterisk, I took a deep breath of the salty air. I was alone, yes, but I wasn't lonely. I was free. Asterisk, a handsome older man at the next table, perhaps a few years my junior, raised his glass toward me. Yamas, he said, smiling. I smiled back, raising my glass. Yamas. Asterisk, the sun vanished into the sea, taking the last of my old life with it. Tomorrow, I was going to Italy. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to see what happened next. Asterisk, the end.